Well, welcome to everyone, all those attending online and also here at the City Wellbeing Centre today. Can I just do a couple of housekeeping things first? Can I ask you please to ensure that your microphone's on mute unless you're asking a question, and that speeches are being recorded for people who aren't able to make it to today's event. Please also ensure that you're named correctly in your Zoom account, because that helps with Q&A at the end. And also feel free to use the chat function. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can electronically raise your hand and then we can identify. So we're very pleased to have with us today the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor Alderman Vincent Keaveny, the new Lord Mayor of London, who will speak in just a moment. And then I'll speak a bit more about the current work at City Wellbeing Centre. And then Sarah Ingram, our Director of Parental Conflict Programs at Tavistock Relationships, and also our Head of Strategic Development, will speak about working together and partnerships. And then there'll be some time at the end for questions. So, very pleased to hand over to the Lord.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining as well. It's great to have the opportunity to be here in the centre today and to say a few words. As you've just heard, my name is Vincent Keaveny. As of about 11 days ago now, I think it's about 11 or 12 days, I am the 693rd Lord Mayor of London. And some of you will wonder, what does a Lord Mayor actually do? I'm sure, putting it simply, I represent the City of London both nationally and internationally. And that's not just our financial institutions, not just the legal profession of which I'm a member, but the wider City of London community, our charities, our cultural institutions, and indeed every single person who works and lives here in the city. And that's why I am so pleased to be with you here today, because city residents and workers have a great friend here in the City Wellbeing Centre. Its founding and its reopening could not have been more auspiciously timed. And this period we've been living through, many people have described it as an emotional roller coaster. The problem with that analogy, I have to say, is for most people, a roller coaster, for most people, not everyone, a roller coaster is something that people enjoy. And there hasn't been a great deal that's thrilling, engaging, or emotionally enjoyable about what many people have had to go through over the last couple of years. Anxiety, depression, isolation, they've been steadily rising. The world as we knew it changed. And in fact, I think a better fairground analogy in many ways, the pandemic has been as an emotional hall of mirrors. The familiar has become distorted, warped beyond recognition for many people. People have, in many senses, become lost. According to the Mental Health Foundation, and I know you know about this in far greater detail than I do, within the first week of lockdown, 1 in 4 adults felt lonely. 1 in 5 people started drinking more to cope with stress, saying I might well have fallen into that category myself. And 1 in 4 adults felt, only 1 in 4 adults felt hopeful. These statistics might have improved as the lockdown eased and the vaccines became more readily available. Although even then, I think the imposition and reimposition of the COVID-related restrictions, I think, correlated at times with spikes in many of those problems. From this July, only 1 in 3 people felt worried about being able to cope, compared with 1 in 2 in March 2020. So steady progress. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all the health workers and authorities for what you've done, the work you've done over this time to help alleviate and address some of those issues. But we know what the pandemic and the necessary lockdowns have done. They're leaving people feeling unresolved emotional issues that need to be treated. The mental health and well-being of the city workers and residents is crucial, never more so than now. As the city opens again, and it's great to wander around on days like today to see workers and the public and tourists back, the reality is we're going to need to be more resilient than ever as we come out of the pandemic. Let's hope we're coming out of the pandemic, at least now. The City of London Corporation has been working hard to support good mental health across the square mile. One of the many strands of that activity, and one I would point out, the work done by the Lord Mayor's Appeal, the This Is Me campaign, which aims to reduce the stigma around mental health in the workplace, raising awareness of mental well-being. Over the last 5 years that it's been running, we've seen really tremendous collaboration and a growing community of businesses and organisations committing to end the stigma around mental health. Over 1,200 organisations have signed up to the campaign across the UK and globally, to 25,000 people having completed the well-being in the workplace training, which the This Is Me campaign provides. And nearly 9 in 10 organisations involved have said that people speak more openly about mental health in their workplace now because of This Is Me, with over 3/4 of organisations saying stigma has been reduced. This shows, it's one example of many initiatives showing what can be achieved if we work together. But undoubtedly, there is still so much more to do, which is where you come in here at the City Wellbeing Centre, assisting everyone, whether individuals, couples or families, businesses, providing that range of therapeutic mental health services designed to support all. During this time, the City Centre's services have been online, and I know they brought much help to everyone who's been able to access and use them. But now, as I say, we're out of the worst of the pandemic, all being well, I'm so pleased that the Centre will be again offering more in-person support. I'm sure the Centre will continue to cement its position in the city, a position of long-lasting and positive impact on mental health here in the Square Mile. And I'd like to thank everyone who's worked so hard in making this centre that positive force in the city. There's many people, I think it's dangerous of me to single out anyone, but there's one person I would mention in particular. That's Matthew Bell, who is a councillor in my own ward, Farrington Within, the great ward of Farrington Within. And I know this has been a particular personal commitment and passion of Matthew's for a number of years. So I've just wanted to include that particular shout out without wanting in any way to diminish the role that so many others have played in making this centre a reality. I look forward to hearing more about your future successes and to see that reflected in those that use the service provided here in the centre. The past couple of years, I think we would all agree, have been unprecedented, unrecognisable, but with your help, things are becoming more familiar again to so many people in the service. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you. What a helpful and useful start today. I mean, I thought the image of the pandemic as a distorting hall of mirrors is really very powerful. And I'll come back to some of these things today. So I think one in particular is just worth really identifying now, which is that as we come out of the pandemic, actually, it's not a question of everything being over, but the impact, the mental health impacts are actually even more likely to grow as we emerge, as normal life hopefully starts to resume. So thank you very much. Okay, so for those who are encountering the City Wellbeing Centre, maybe for the first time, what is it? Katie, could we have the first slide? Well, as the Lord Mayor conveyed, the City Wellbeing Centre aims to improve mental health and psychological well-being for workers and residents in the City of London, and also the surrounding boroughs of Tower Hamlets, Camden, Islington, Hackney, Westminster, Southwark, and Lambeth. And in creating the City Wellbeing Centre, the City of London Corporation, I think, has shown real vision, establishing a partnership with us at Tavistock Relationships to offer high-quality psychological therapies for workers and residents of the city and neighbouring boroughs at a time when, as the Lord Mayor said, the pandemic has placed unprecedented demands on mental health and on family relationships. Can we have slide 2, Katie? Now, it's been quite a thing to try to launch a new building at the height of a pandemic. And we did actually hold an official launch in the autumn last year. But as we're about to open the building, the country went into lockdown again. And the City Wellbeing Centre has never, until now, opened its doors. So we've had to wait a long time to open up for in-person work to make proper use of this great resource that the London Corporation has taken such care in developing. But now, at last, the moment has come. And we will be offering tours this afternoon for those who are able to come down in person. But if you can't and you're interested, we also have a brief online video tour. And I think my colleague Katie is going to put a link to that into the chat so that anyone interested can have a look. You'll see that this is a state-of-the-art centre for psychological therapy from which we can serve the many local communities of the city and neighbouring boroughs. Slide 3, please, Katie. So how are we doing that? By increasing accessibility to evidence-based psychological therapies, increasing the choice of a range of therapeutic help, and offering longer-term therapies, which aren't widely available anymore through the NHS or other services. Now, the need for easy to access evidence-based help has never been greater, and Tavistock Relationships community of therapists offer counselling and psychotherapy for individuals and couples who are experiencing a range of difficulties, including depression, anxiety, relationship problems, bereavement, struggles with work or family life, sexual problems or self-esteem issues, and life transitions, such as moving towards retirement or living with illness, things like dementia, increasingly common. A unique feature of what we offer at the City Wellbeing Centre is that our full fee services support the funding of our low and no fee service for those who would otherwise be unable to afford to get help. Now, of course, there are many elements which go into enabling us in our efforts to do this. One aspect which we're keen to develop further is linkage with corporate sponsors to support wider community access. My colleague Sarah Ingram will be saying a little bit more about that. So since October 2020, when we opened, didn't open the building, but tried to, these services have been offered online. And I'll tell you a bit now about the work we've done so far. Slide 4, please. So we have been busy promoting the online City Wellbeing Centre through various campaigns, offering low-cost psychotherapy to a range of individuals in the local community, developing a service for carers and their partners living with long-term conditions, and this has actually been with the help of a grant from the City of London, establishing a really impressive expert advisory group. Again, there are many people within the city in their time to help. Continuing our efforts to establish partnerships with the corporate sector. Slide. So what's been achieved so far? Between October 2020 and October 2021, so in our first year online, we've seen 562 clients. And just to give you a sense of where they're from, 26 of those have been people who live in the city, 86 people who just work in the city, and the majority, 351, living in the surrounding areas, and then 21 people both live and work in the city, and 78 both work in the city and live in the surrounding areas. Next slide. So we're continuing in our efforts to attract funding through higher paying individuals and couples to enable us to realise our social mission, which is to offer low cost and no cost therapy. And at present, only just over 30% of individuals and couples are paying the higher fee. So what does the future hold? Next slide. We do need to continue attracting higher paying individuals and couples to ensure that we provide this low cost, no cost work from the centre. And we aim to expand the work of the centre through partnerships and additional funding to help us to extend our offer. For example, to include family therapy for disadvantaged families within the City of London, and particularly those from Black and minority ethnic communities, parenting, and work with older people, which is a much neglected area, which is very dear to my own heart. Needless to say, this work is needed now more than ever. As a consequence of the pandemic, as the Lord Mayor said, we have a mental health crisis. And this is a crisis that up to now has largely taken place behind closed doors. We recently commissioned a survey research to find out how the UK's relationships and mental health have fared during the pandemic. Our YouGov survey canvassed the views of more than 2,000 adults across the United Kingdom. And I'll just give you a few of the headlines. So we found that 4 out of 10 people felt that the experience of lockdown would have long-term impacts on their mental health. They're speaking to this point that the Lord Mayor made about what's going to be the effect of returning to our lives. And a similar number said that the pandemic caused additional stress for their children and wider family. And separated parents, and it's important to say that when we work with couples, we work with very many separated couples who co-parenting together. Separated parents have particularly struggled, with 68% of them saying that the pandemic had caused significant additional family difficulties. Around a quarter of all respondents felt that the pandemic had caused increased stress and conflict in their relationship, and half of them felt that their relationship was at its worst point ever. I have to say, this is not surprising. For many people during the pandemic, our immediate family relationships have been our entire personal worlds, with wider social and family networks only available to us online. Families have had to bear the emotional strain, as we've been cut off from the outside world, work, and wider social contexts. In my own clinical work, I've seen many couples where fault lines in their relationship, which are previously held, have been blown apart by the pandemic and its mix of heightened anxiety, along with the removal of external structures and social support. For many of us, the pandemic has meant that we've been reliant on our family relationships for all of our support. And where there have been underlying vulnerabilities in these relationships, these have inevitably become amplified. Never before has the link between our relationships and our mental health been so apparent. Almost half of those surveyed believe that as a result of the pandemic, people will be more likely to seek personal, relationship, or mental health support, and that this should be provided free of charge in the UK. Well, we're not there yet, and we're still a long way from parity of esteem between mental and physical health. But the City Wellbeing Centre initiative may be one local step towards this. The mental health consequences of the crisis require imaginative thinking and long-term investment. In establishing the City Wellbeing Centre, the City of London Corporation has taken the lead in this. As Chief Executive of Tavistock Relationships, I'm delighted that now we have the chance to work in the City Wellbeing Centre building itself, located in the heart of the city, close to the many diverse communities we live and work in. As we emerge from the pandemic and hopefully resume our lives in person as well as online, we look forward to working with the London Corporation, with local community organisations, and with city firms in order to develop this vision of a resource for mental health and psychological well-being open to all in the city and its adjacent boroughs. Well, finally, what can you do to help? Katie, lastly. Well, support us if you can by introducing us to other people and businesses, donating to cover the cost of psychotherapy, helping to make it free for someone who can't pay the support that they need. Commission us to create workshops and sessions for staff. And think with us, tell us what you would like to see on offer here at the Wellbeing Centre. And this interestingly picks up a theme that the Lord Mayor talked about. Help us take away the stigma by talking about mental health. We need to encourage our friends, our colleagues and others, including ourselves, to ask for help when we need it. So finally, for making this happen in the first place, I'm just going to mention a few people that I want to thank. No doubt there are many others, so forgive me if I don't mention you. So just to, again, pick up what the Lord Mayor said, Matt Bell, I'm sitting just behind me, whose idea this was originally, and who's nurtured this through from its inception and continued to be to accompany its process. Randall Anderson, Tom Anderson, Simon Cribbins, Ian Jarman, Zoe Darney, Marianne Fredericks, Claire Giroux, Neil Hansel, Xenia Kumi, Suzanne Levin, Tom Newman, Marcus Odilami, Chandy Tani, Nicholas Wheeland, Alison Gowman, Helen Fentiman, and everyone at the Carers Network who have been so helpful in generating referrals into the project. Then our own trustee, Ross Breyer, Gary Faraday, who was then the chair of the British Psychoanalytic Council. And I have to mention Damien McCann, who has managed the work of the online centre over the past year, but is unwell and is gutted because he hasn't been able to join us today. Also from TR, Lynn Coleman, Mandit Ataru, Samina Ahmed, and all the team at Tavistock Relationships. Thank you very much. Okay. Going to hand over now to Sarah.
Katie, if you could put my slides up. Thank you. And interestingly, a lot of all that Andrew has said, there are very similar themes to what I will be saying in the beginning. So really, we are thinking about why are we here and how do we work in partnership. So Katie, if I could have the next slide. Thank you. So Tavistock Relationships are keen to work in partnership with firms and community groups, working with those of you who are interested in the life of the city and the well-being of those who live and work here. So when we start with the why supporter, I've started at the same place Andrew started, with the outcome of the YouGov survey, where we spoke to 2,000 adults across the UK to find out how is their mental health post-pandemic. And as Andrew said, it does paint a disturbing picture. Next slide, please, Vicky. 4 out of 10 respondents felt that the experience of lockdown would have a long-term negative impact on their mental health. And almost half of those surveyed thought that as a result of the pandemic, people are more likely to seek personal relationships or mental health support. Next slide, thank you, Katie. The experience of the pandemic brought home to us what research has long shown. In many respects, relationship health is mental health. When our relationships are in trouble, our mental health suffers. When therapy is effective, we see significant improvements in our mental health as well as our relationship quality. I don't know if you can see clearly that picture. It was painted by a friend, an elderly friend of mine. And at the bottom, it just says a scene in a restaurant. And if you just minimise the photos, the sort of pictures of the Zoom, you can see the whole family and an elderly person sitting at the end, sort of watching her family. So it's a striking image, really, of sort of how we're living at the moment. Thank you, Katie. Bring on the next slide. So what do we mean by partnership? We're thinking collectively and working relationally. And all these people and these different organisations that you can see here are our partners. And they're a diverse group of organisations. And we're working with them in collaborative endeavours. Whilst the projects might look slightly different, each one at its core has the intention of supporting people, whether people, whatever their means, wherever people are, whatever their means, city residents and workers are getting the support they need to live and work in the city. Next slide, please. So what do we mean by partnership? What do we need as a City Wellbeing Centre? We need more friends in the right places. Can you introduce us to people who are interested in wellbeing, philanthropy, HR, corporate responsibility, with a desire to make a difference in a local grassroots connection? We're interested in receiving financial support. A little goes a long way. £10,000 will support 20 carers in the carer programme, and £5,000 will enable us to support local residents with one-to-one support or a small group intervention. We need event sponsorship. We have to host a number of ongoing mental health and wellbeing events, and we'd like support in marketing these and spreading the word. We also need help in promoting the centre, staff and colleagues, telling people we're here, and the service we offer is means tested, it's private and confidential. We don't need a referral from a doctor or from an HR team. People can book an appointment online, unknown to those around them, should they want to or need to. So what can we offer you? We can offer you the opportunity to partner with the City Wellbeing Centre to make a difference to the lives of city workers and residents. We deliver expert, accessible support with grassroots relationships, and we have an open front door. Next slide, thank you, Katie. The next step, contact us to arrange to meet. Come and have a look. We're here and we're open. We'd love to be. And please consider creative ways in which you might partner with us. We've given some examples, but there are many, many more, and we'd really love to hear from you. And really, we ask you to keep the City Wellbeing Centre in mind. When you hear about the need for mental health support from colleagues, family or friends, tell them about the centre. We're here for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, well, we've got time for questions, and we'll have a sort of virtual panel as well. We have colleagues who are zooming in who will also, representing Tavistock Relationships, who will also be able to answer questions. So, this is the challenge of online events, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the danger of a silence like this is that my daughter, who went off to school this morning, made me promise that I would not mention Peppa Pig or make any awkward remarks like that, which of course now I've done. With a live audience, I think there's more pressure to ask questions than can't leave the room until somebody's asked a question.
If I could ask, you mentioned the businesses, the city businesses. I noticed one or two names all there. Where are you with the outreach to those businesses? How are you connecting? So,
yeah, I don't know if everyone can hear that, because I know the mics are a bit problematic, but the question was just about where we are with reaching out to local businesses, which has been really hard. Not only, I suppose, because we're in a different world, we're not in the corporate world, we're a charity. So I suppose in terms of the front door and who to speak to, we really do need friends in the right place to enable us to be introduced. We have done a number of sort of online events, workshops, webinars, which have been really well received from the team. But in terms of sort of going to live events, networking and sort of breakfast and all the things that we have liked to have done, we have not been able to have any of those opportunities.
Haven't been as many of them, so certainly those opportunities simply haven't existed.
Yeah. So I think that's a real an action for us for the coming 6 months to a year to really knock on those doors.
Yeah, I mean that's been, I was thinking about this sort of distorting wall of mirrors. That's been the difficulty, hasn't it? The world was one way when we conceptualised this, and then the reality has been there aren't doors open to knock on. Nobody's been in it. The city's been so empty. And then we lose, in a way, the kind of advantage that making a new splash gives you. So we're already kind of part of the furniture. Hence this sort of second go at it.
Andrew, could I just tell you from beaming in that Helen Fentiman has her hand up?
Hi, thank you, and thank you all for their speeches. It's whilst I've heard some of it before, it's always extremely interesting to hear the story again. What I wanted to ask is a question about local people, residents using the service as opposed to workers or businesses, and I just wonder what the balance is between local residents using the online service and potentially the service from the centre is compared to workers, and how easy it is for residents to, if you like, walk into the centre, and whether there's any kind of association by people entering that might put them off. And I wondered if we can use anonymised case studies in any way to encourage people to access the service, because often people think, oh, I'm not ill enough, or I'm not unwell enough, or, you know, they won't be able to help me, or, you know, whatever it is that is a bit of an obstacle or a barrier to people accessing. So I just wonder if there's anything more that we can think about offering to people to feel able to come along.
I think, Helen, that's a really good point, particularly because it's been online. So in terms of sort of accessibility, the door hasn't been open for people to drop in and to say hello. And that's what we're hoping to be able to do now, to have somebody, the shutters are up and the door is open and the lights are on, because actually it hasn't been the case for the last year. So that real hope to be able to have a presence, people that are sort of walking past when they go and get their milk and their paper, that we're going to be here now, which I think will make a significant difference to just accessibility. And certainly we are keen to be meeting local people and reaching out to residents. And certainly when we were planning this to be an in-person event, which would have been lovely, we were inviting residents, and our sort of first point of call was to the local shops and the local residents that are living above and around, to really just introduce ourselves and say hello. So it absolutely is that, you know, priority for us to sort of to reach out and get to know our neighbours.
Yes, and maybe I can stick that up as well, because also your point, Helen, about anonymised case studies and using really down to earth examples of people, again, tackling the stigma, which I think is terribly important. And I have to say that Sarah and Honor, who spoke just a minute ago, have done a lot of work on this, being responsible for delivering really at quite large scale government-funded conflict programs in the home counties and in central London, well, various boroughs. And you've done, I'm speaking for Sarah because she's too modest, but done great work in terms of being able to get people who really wouldn't, expect to make use of these kinds of services, to come and to people at scale.
It does involve a sort of a different, rather than just we're here, we have to go to people and find out what people need and then create something with them. And that's the bit that we're really keen to develop and explore. Equally need the funding to be able to do that. So it's this sort of, there's always that sort of balance of what have we got and what can we do, and make it sort of practical and viable.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, Andrew, I just wondered if I feel like we're terribly advantaged because of the corporation's wisdom in calling it a wellbeing centre. This doesn't say come here if you've got hideous mental health problems centre. And I think our job is to translate the notion of well-being to what it means for everybody, whether you're working or you're living in Petticoat Towers or you're working in a shop or on the market just outside our building. And I think that's the challenge for the next coming year that we're thinking about, along with the marketing team and everybody else. And so, I suppose one of the ways that we get support is, if the Lord Mayor will give us a lovely quote, then we get a chance to go out and say, the Lord Mayor thinks it was a great idea. There are simple things that we can be assisted and supported by, and those sorts of things really matter to people.
And this may be Pollyannaish on my part, but I was thinking about the Lord Mayor's speech just now, actually, and you brought yourself into it. And I think that's terribly important, that the pandemic has really brought home to everybody our own vulnerability and family pressures and everything. And maybe it is an opportunity for us really to make a difference in terms of stigma. Any other questions, or doesn't have, even comments or observation?
Can I just say that as with everything, it's who you know, and it's so difficult to knock on doors of corporations and banks and big businesses. But I know that an awful lot of the city corporations do want to participate in charitable events, and they have, tax breaks for their employees if they can prove that they do 20 hours charitable work and things. But I don't think it's very hard to knock on doors, as Sarah was saying. And I do think it's really the personal. If any of us know people, have contacts in city law firms or something, to approach them and ask or sell, actually, the idea, and then link up. Because I think there is a lot of goodwill, and that we could try and use it. That's all. I'm just echoing the personal, what we can do personally.
I mean, one comment I would make is that one of the things we are trying to do, both at the corporation and through things like the Lord Mayor's Appeal, is to encourage charities which are operating in the same area to look for the opportunities to collaborate and to support each other's work. And there are already a number of charities trying to improve the mental health story in the corporate world. Some of them probably know about the Wellbeing Centre problem. Some of them it's probably not yet on their radar screen. And I would certainly encourage you to connect in with those charities, so that this is seen as another resource which is available to they're talking to the law firms. And mental health in the legal sector is a significant issue, big issue around long hours culture and demands made, particularly on junior boys, but indeed on senior boys as well. I think it's the knowledge that this place, this fantastic new resource exists, getting that out there, and then I think you'll find very quickly that networking context will build.
Well, it's helpful advice, and I think it's going to be a slow burn, but we're really keen now. This is an opportunity to go up a gear.
Yeah.
In terms of coming up with this.
Helen's hand is still raised. I wonder if it is because she's keen to say something else, or whether she has just left it up. I think maybe it's a legacy. It's a legacy hand, I think.
Any other hands? We can only see a bit of the screen. A few of the participants.
Back there. Sorry. No.
The joys of online. And actually, this is a new development, because just online I got used to. But this hybrid is quite discombobulating. Yeah. Any other comments, or shall we see if we can seize the moment to show people around before those people who are here and pull this to a close? And those of you who want to, do have a look online, have a virtual tour, come down and see us, and we'd love to begin the dialogue. Okay, well, maybe we should leave it there. I'd like to thank the Lord Mayor again very much for your presence today. It's been fantastic. Okay, and thank you to all of you for coming. Goodbye.